Hi, I'm Rick and welcome to another episode of Sweet Heat. And this is a dish that I've been wanting to make for a long time. It's called chile colorado. And the way that my mom used to make it and that I like to have it is with pork. And a lot of my friends and a lot of followers and fans are continually asking me, like, if I don't eat meat, what can I do? And I think that for a lot of Mexican dishes, changing a Mexican dish into a vegan or a vegetarian option is actually really easy. So that's why I wanted to do this dish for you today. So in this version, I'm using a number of different vegetables that are gonna give us some deep umami flavors in addition to a little bit of sweetness, because it is obviously Sweet Heat. And as always, if you like this recipe, if you like me, if you wanna see more, make sure you hit like and subscribe and you will be notified as soon as there is another Sweet Heat recipe. When I was actually trying to decide what vegetables I wanted to use for this, I actually started thinking about, what the meat actually does in the dish. When you brown the meat, you're developing a lot of umami flavors. And so what I decided on is a combination of cauliflower and mushrooms. Mushrooms have a lot of umami, and when you really hard roast and sear mushrooms, they get a very meat-like flavor. And then the cauliflower, there's something about the nuttiness and the deep caramelization on a cauliflower. I will literally stand at a sheet tray and just eat roasted cauliflower off the sheet tray. So those two flavors are going to stand in for the umami that the pork brings. The four chilies that I'm using are ancho. There's a little bit of a heat to it, but for the most part, it's just like really sweet. The guajillos give a beautiful color. They have a slightly more mild flavor. It's a little bit more vegetal. And then pasillas are actually dried green chilies. They give a really nice kind of grassy, earthy, herbaceous kind of flavor to this. And then for heat and a little bit of smokiness, I'm using the chipotle or the morita. I'm not adding sugar to this dish, but I give you the option of using beets, sweet potatoes, because those are my favorite, or plantains. All three of these vegetables are gonna take a little while, which is good, and they're gonna hold their texture and their shape, and they're also gonna give a little sugar. For the spices, I use a combination of oregano, sage, cumin, coriander seed. There's a lot of like highs and lows. There's a lot of like really bright flavors. There's some sweet flavors. There's a little bit of acid. So it's actually a really, really fun, flavorful bite of food. All right, I love this a lot. This is just like such a calming, very zen and chill exercise for me. Also, it reminds me of my mom. It was just so beautiful just watching her hands open up the chilies, dropping out the seeds. There's some ribs in there. You just pull the ribs out, scrape the seeds out. But you can see the inside, like this chili ancho is actually so moist and kind of fruity. It's like the inside of a prune or a raisin. And that's actually what you want in a dried chili. You want it to be fresh and moist. Means it has a lot of flavor. So for the chipotles or the moritas, what I normally do is I just take the stems off and I leave them whole. One, because they're actually more difficult to get the seeds out, but the seeds are much smaller than the anchos, and they just kind of melt into the dish and they just add the really nice heat. So I'm gonna add the raisins to the pot, and then we will jump back to the stove. And I'm gonna add 5 cups of water to the dish. You could use vegetable stock here if you want it, or mushroom stock would be great. And this is all the liquid that's going to go into the dish. I'm gonna just give them a little push down. Once it comes to the boil, I'll turn it off, let it sit covered, and that's gonna steam and get the chilies nice and soft, and then we'll blend them. So now, while the chilies are getting soft, I'm going to prep all the veg. So you don't have to go crazy with the mushrooms. I'm just gonna cut them in half and then cut them into probably 1/2 inch pieces. So I'm just taking the green bits and leaves off of the cauliflower, and then I'm gonna cut it in half. And then I'm just going to cut them into thin slices. I want them to hold their shape while they cook. And the other reason why I like this particular cut is because I want to get a good contact with the pan so that all of this is flat against the pan and gets really nice and brown and caramelized. I just finely chopped one onion. That's gonna give me a little bit of sweetness because I'm gonna let that caramelize. And then ordinarily I would finely grate my garlic, but I'm in a chopping mood, so I'm gonna chop it. All right, and that is all my veg. Oh no, except for my sweet potato, which I'm gonna peel. For the sweet potato, which is actually this really beautiful white sweet potato, which probably means that it's gonna be a little less sweet than the orange garnets, which are probably a little more common in the US. So I'm just gonna cube it up. I don't think you necessarily need a precise cut, but you probably want it to be in small-ish pieces. Okay, that is all the veg prepped. All right, so now I'm gonna make my spice blend. So I'm basically just gonna dump all the spices and herbs into the spice grinder. So this is a teaspoon of Mexican oregano, a teaspoon of whole peppercorn, a teaspoon of dried sage, a teaspoon of coriander seed, a teaspoon of cumin seed, and I'm gonna use, these are like small bay leaves, which I like, they're pretty flavorful. I'm just gonna use a pinch, but use 2 if you have like the larger ones. And we'll just grind this up. Oh, it smells so good. Okay, I've been told that I should talk about my trivet. This is actually a sample tile. I tiled my house recently, and I had ordered a bunch of sample tiles just to kind of get a look and feel for design and color. And then all of a sudden, you know, I had like 12 tiles that I randomly didn't know what to do with. So what I did is I actually put like 4 little pieces of felt on the bottom, and now I have a trivet. Okay, so the chilies are done. They're still very, very hot. And depending on your blender, you might want to do this in batches. I know that this blender can handle it. I mean, look at it, it's like almost the size of me. So I'm just going to pour everything in. Make sure the lid is on nice and tight. And then I am gonna take it to full speed. I want this to be completely smooth, but just make sure that you go really, really slow at the beginning and then gradually go up. Okay, I am actually gonna give this a taste because I just love this sauce, oh my God. Oh, it smells so incredible. And it's really, really, really nice and thick, which I like. Wow. You get the heat from the chilies, but you also get a little hint of sweetness from the raisins, which I really, really like a lot. Oh. That was gonna be great with the veg. Okay, it should be pretty thick. I mean, it's definitely pourable, but it should be the consistency of almost like a pourable yogurt, because once we add all the vegetables into it and we simmer it, the vegetables are gonna lose their moisture, and then it's gonna thin the sauce down. So you want this slightly thicker than what you would imagine the finished dish to look like. And basically the flavor that's in this blender right now, sans the salt and the spices, is pretty much going to be the sweet heat portion of this dish. So this is actually gonna take a while, but this is where a lot of the really rich, meaty, delicious, caramelly flavors are gonna come from. So it's definitely worth the effort. I have quite a bit of oil, but because it's all veg, these vegetables are gonna suck up a lot of the oil. I'm using extra virgin olive oil just because I love the flavor of it. This pan is preheating, so I'm gonna add about 2 tablespoons. I'm gonna do everything in batches. And so I'm gonna take half of the cauliflower, And I'm gonna try and arrange it in a fairly even layer. I wanna get the majority of the cauliflower seared and really browned. And so I'm gonna let this sit. You don't have to do anything with it. I may add a little bit of oil to this side. You can see it's a little bit dry. Just kind of eyeball it. In about 2 or 3 minutes, I'm just gonna flip them over and get brown on the other side. And that's it. I love the smell of roasted cauliflower, oh my God. I just put the mushrooms down with a couple of random pieces of cauliflower. So I just added the onions, the garlic, and the salt. The reason why I put the salt in at this stage, and I put all the salt in the dish in with the onions, I want the salt to draw out all of that moisture. There's a lot of browning at the bottom of this pan, and when the juices from the onions get released, I'll use that to scrape up all the brown bits. And also it'll pull out the sugars in the onions, and they'll start to caramelize as well. So I banked some of the onions up against the side of the wall, and I put the spice mix down. I'm just gonna kind of gently move it. I wanna get them nice and toasted. They're gonna release their flavors. The olive oil is gonna help pull some of those flavors out. And then I'll slowly start mixing up the onions in there as well. Now, I'm going to dump everything in. So all the sweet potato and all the little cauli scraps. And now all of the mushroom and cauli are going in, although I love the sheet tray so much. I just kind of want to eat all the cauliflower and mushrooms on the sheet tray, but alas, we will make the dish. All right, and now the chili puree. This is all the liquid for the dish. I just want to make sure that I get this nice and incorporated. As this cooks, the vegetables are going to soften and they're going to release their flavors. And so I just want everything coated, and then I'm going to bring it up to a boil and then reduce it down to a simmer, cover it, and let it cook for about an hour until everything is just really, really tender. This is chile colorado. I made some rice and some tostadas. I found some beautiful blue corn tortillas, and you just slowly toast them in a skillet. It takes a little while, but they're so good. I'm really excited. And the first thing I'm gonna do is plate up some rice. I'm just using white rice because the star of this dish is the chile colorado, and I don't want anything to get in that way. It's so beautiful. It's this gorgeous mahogany color. The vegetables are perfectly cooked. Everything has kept their shape. So excited about this. Okay, so now it should be cool enough that I won't burn myself. I'm gonna move this gigantic pot back. Oh, I'm so excited to go in. I'm just gonna grab me a little bit mushroom and cauliflower. My dog is pacing around, waiting for me to drop something on the floor so he can eat it. Wow. There's a really, really nice heat, but it's so balanced. A little bit of sweetness from the raisin, and then the sweet potato actually gave a lot of its sweetness into the dish. But it's so hearty and so satisfying. The caramelization on the vegetables, it's actually just giving it that really, really nice meaty quality. It's so good. Oh my God, going in for more. Or the tostadas, can you hear that? Okay, I'm gonna stop eating on camera now. I hope you like it. Don't forget to like and subscribe and tag us in your social. When you make this dish, make sure that you're tagging me and Food 52 in it. I will see you next time on Sweet Heat.